further rein in the massive growth in labor costs, I propose requiring that new teachers' contracts establish a minimum 20% share for health insurance costs. State employees and many others in both the private and public sectors have accepted a 20% share as the standard contribution. Our school governance structures are a vestige of the 19th century. Like our unsustainable personnel costs, must be reformed. We have 290 separate school districts, one for every 312 students, 63 different supervisory bodies, and a state board of education. That's a total of 354 different education governing bodies for a state with only 251 towns. We spend, by some estimates, nearly triple the national average for school administration. There's no doubt that we have room to make our system of education more efficient and more affordable. A recently issued report from the Transformation Policy Commission outlined changes aimed at improving student outcomes. One recommendation, consolidating into as few as 12 education districts, highlights that a 21st century governance system can provide more than cost savings. A modern system opens the schoolhouse doors and allows students to explore new learning opportunities in different settings and with the latest technologies. Reforming the outdated school governance bureaucracy is long overdue. The plan put forth by legislators in my administration 2 days ago calls for a 5% reduction in governance spending in the next fiscal year and an additional 10% reduction in 2012. Streamlining services, centralizing back office functions, and consolidating districts will be necessary to meet the challenge. Restraining governance spending will allow us to make investments in reforms, classroom technologies, and most importantly, in our students. At the root of our education funding challenge is a system that's substantially eroding local control. Each year, the connection between your school budget vote and your property tax bill becomes more and more distant. Expanded subsidies mask true costs. The budget you approve is not the budget you're billed for. And even as tax rates decrease, property tax bills increase. This is the upside-down world spawned from Act 60. When there's confusion, there's no control. If we're not serious about reforming this system, your town meeting vote will become an empty action. Local control will be dead. We cannot allow this to happen. At 13 years old, our education funding regime has grown into an unmanageable maze of exemptions, deductions, prebates, rebates, cost shifts, and hidden funding sources. Overlapping rings of complexity keep all but a few experts from understanding its many moving pieces. This isn't good tax policy. It's not good government. If you ask most Vermonters, it's not good for much of anything. It's time to pull back the curtains and let the sun shine on how education is funded. Transparency. Who's paying? What are we paying for? What are the results? It's been a missing element of education financing since the passage of Act 60. Something most Vermonters may be surprised to learn is that taxpayers are funding 1,000 students who don't exist. The so-called phantom students are a creation of our system. When a school reports its per pupil count every year, that number can only decrease by 3.5% from the previous year, regardless of how steep the actual decline. For schools shrinking year after year, this policy compounds the distance between reality and what Vermonters pay for. I propose increasing the cap to 10% this year, and then gradually phasing it out over 3 years. When I first went to town meeting, each voter knew that a vote for increased spending was a vote to increase his or her property taxes. Vermonters were generous, but careful. As education funding evolved, some programs like income sensitivity were created. This was a necessary safety valve to ensure that low-income people weren't forced from their homes by high property taxes. Over time and over my objections, this program was expanded to more and more people with higher and higher incomes. What started as assistance to the less fortunate has grown into an entitlement for over 2/3 of taxpayers, some with incomes as high as $110,000. From a school budgeting perspective, income sensitivity subsidies distort decision-making by divorcing the majority of voters from the real cost of education. Next year, 70% of Vermonters will be shielded from the full brunt of education spending decisions. When an increasing number of voters are exempted from paying the full share, higher school budgets become easier to pass. The natural check and balance of the old town meeting is gone. While that might seem like good politics to some, it's terrible policy. Each expansion of the subsidy pushes increased costs to a shrinking number of residents and businesses and further erodes local control. It sends spending and property tax bills ever higher, making our economy less competitive. The push for greater expansions has also led to extreme inequities in the system. There are over 6,000 Vermonters receiving a property tax subsidy who own homes valued at $400,000 or more. Of those, there are 136 people who live in $1 million homes being subsidized. In the education fund, income sensitivity payments are a growing dark cloud blocking out more important priorities. This program is expected to grow by $26 million next year, a jump of 18%. It'll be a full 11% of the entire education fund, bigger than the special, technical, and adult education programs combined. If left unchanged by 2012, the program will cost $183 million, 54% more than just 4 years earlier. As the cost of income sensitivity grows, it leaves less money for important education priorities. The choice between directing education resources to our children and growing this subsidy is an easy one. By making progressive eligibility adjustments and curbing payments on homesteads valued greater than $400,000, we can put the program on a sustainable course, reserving it for those who need it the most. I recognize that changes to the income sensitivity program will impact some taxpayers, but bringing common sense to this subsidy is an essential step to reducing the overall cost of education and providing real property tax relief for all in the years to come. In fact, if income sensitivity payments were not increased this year, there would be no increase in the residential property tax rate. Our goal must be to reduce the need for exemptions over time with responsible school spending decisions and a robust tax base that allows for lower rates.